Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're going to be working on a piece called Spear Volley. Now, this piece actually took a very long time to do, mostly because I was stuck in a really bad creative slump. Don't know why, it just sort of came out of nowhere, and I couldn't get any work done. I don't know what was wrong with me. Everything I did, I just pretty much hated and had to start from scratch. There I go, making a note of it. Um, so, I tried a bunch of times, lots of different poses, and I only recorded some of them, but there were actually probably like 6 hours of me trying different poses and working them a bit and then deleting them. But anyway, I finally did get some work done, and here is the video on it. As you can probably tell, I'm using Adobe Photoshop, just like all my other paintings, working on a Cintiq Wacom tablet. So, here we go. We're just working on the silhouette here, just pushing and pulling some of the shapes. I might actually go back to using some line work, just because I kind of miss it, especially when working on faces. The way I work now is I sort of just use big blocks, and it's a lot more loose, which is nice, but sometimes it can be really hard to add details. But I don't know. We'll see. I also feel like I did more before I so now the way I work is I've been doing everything in black and white and like almost completely rendering it out, and then adding color and re-rendering. And I'm not sure if that's the best way to do it. I talked about this in my last video. I feel like before I used to sort of keep it loose, add color, and then render. And I'd like to go back, or at least try that out again, because this system is taking a very long time, and I'm not really fond of it at the moment. Alrighty, so javelin throwing or spear throwing is kind of a weird pose. I looked up a lot of reference material online of like Olympic athletes, and I guess the problem with using photo captures of real life people doing athletic events is that there are just so many bizarre minutiae in the pose. You know, muscles doing things they usually don't do, people making weird faces as they exert themselves. If I were to just make a one-to-one duplicate of some of the photos I've seen, it would have been pretty bizarre looking. A lot of people, you know, are really exerting themselves, so their lips are clenched and their cheeks are puffed out, or their tongues are half out and their eyes are closed and they're all squinty, or some other weird, non-inspiring, awkward sort of pose. So once again, the captain will have her mouth agape, as she often does in these pieces. Rousing speech, she was talking. In leading strike, she was, you know, about to swing her halberd around. It was kind of leading a battle cry. And this one, I guess she's giving the order to volley the spears. So right now the pose is a little bit awkward, but compared to the day or so before of not being able to get anything down which I liked at all, this was a huge step forward for me, because I usually don't get creative slumps. I usually can just work through them. I sort of have that A-type personality where I need to get things done, so I don't have time to just sit there and kind of get in a slump. I don't know how to explain it, but I got hit with that slump pretty hard. I think it's actually because you might be able to tell from my voice, I have a little bit of a cold. I'm wondering if my body was just worn out and I didn't have it in me to keep working. That's possible. That might have been what it was. But yeah. So anyway, this piece actually in the end took about 8 hours, and that's way too long. I actually was down to about 3 to 5 hours before, and I don't like the fact that my speed is slowing down. So I gotta keep working and practicing. So here we go. Metal. Metal can be so fun, but so challenging to paint. This is one of those situations where it was not fun and very challenging to paint. As I was emerging from my creative slump, I don't know, it was weird. It was almost like I'd been in a coma and I couldn't remember how to paint. So it took me a long time to sort of figure things out, which I normally would have been able to do very quickly. But anyway, so I finally started getting the pose right. Now I'm doing the legs. The legs were kind of funny because her upper body is heavily armored. She's got, you know, a shirt, a male's shirt, and then she's got plate armor, and that's going to add a lot of kind of girth. But you know, her legs are just wearing like tights with like leather boots, so they're going to stay pretty thin. And she's sort of got these twig legs. I didn't really. There's no description of where this was taking place, so wasn't quite sure. I figured like either a battlefield or the ramparts was a good place, since where else would you really be ordering people to throw their spears other than in combat? But I think that doesn't come up till later. One thing that I did want to do, and I totally forgot, or I didn't have time, I don't remember which it was I wanted to add a lot of reflections to the armor of local things, such as other parts of her body. But I don't think I ended up doing that. At one point, I did go and grab some reference, just for the lighting and the reflectivity of the or I guess reflectiveness. There we go. The reflectiveness of the armor. Depending on how polished your steel plate is, it can be anywhere from sort of a dull glow to like the uber shiny mirror-like surface. So I just sort of figured that out before I could go any further. I've been pretty busy lately. Usually these videos come out every couple days. This one's been a little bit longer. It hasn't been a week or anything, but ours, I hope not. But it's been a little bit longer. A lot of it because of the creative slump, but also I've been doing a lot of work for EGM, and that's been taking a lot of my time. And sadly, I haven't been able to do any of the other projects I've been trying to work on. I have a charity miniature I need to work on, which is sitting next to me. It's all cleaned up and ready to go. It just hasn't been fully assembled yet. It's for the Feast of Blades tournament I'm going to be doing, or I'm going to be donating a miniature which I assembled and painted. It's going to be Sisters of Battle. What's it called? Penitent Engine. The reason I'm using that model is because it's a cool model. I'm best known for my rust and environmental effects, and generally converting. I don't know how much converting I'm going to do on it. It's a pretty robust model already. Maybe I'll add some parchment or something. But I've got that sitting here. I'm thinking I might do a video recording of me working on it, but I haven't decided yet. Okay, so I was really lucky in that the face came together very quickly on this. I was actually surprised, since my previous attempts had been very, terrible, just because of the creative slump. So it was really good to have a face come together this fast. I think I just got lucky with my initial brush strokes. She's got this nice intense look. If you remember from the last video, Leading Strike, the face went through many iterations. Many iterations. It can be really difficult to make characters look the same across multiple pieces. because different angles of the face, different expressions, emotions being emoted, they can warp the contours of the face, the musculature as it moves makes things look different. So it's a little bit different than just a straightforward duplicate, since you can't have the person having the same expression in every picture. Though I'm sort of leaning that way myself with these yelling faces. But the next piece I'm going to be doing is Elixir of Life, which is the captain nursing a wound using this potion, and I was kind of leaning towards her grimacing, but having her mouth closed for once, because it's always kind of being a flycatcher. Alright, I was also pretty good about the hands this time. The pointing hand... Excuse me, I've got a yawn. It's still pretty early in the morning here. Anyway, the pointing hand came out pretty quickly. It didn't take too long. Hands and faces and whatnot are generally hard to do, so I was happy that it didn't take forever. For those who don't know, or have never taken art history, or just have no reason to know this, the expression, "it'll cost you an arm and a leg," actually comes from portraiture paintings. The reason being that arms and legs are hard to paint, so that's why a lot of the portraiture from several hundred years ago is just sort of shoulders and head up. The price would increase dramatically for the inclusion of an arm or a leg. Therefore, if someone is going to charge you a lot of money, they say it will cost you an arm or a leg, or an arm and a leg. This was a different pose I tried out of having the arm more extended out, sort of like more ready to throw. But I ended up staying with the down arm. I'm not sure why. I think it was just the spear was too close to the face. I actually tried to hold this pose, and I found it was pretty difficult. It's possible, but she definitely makes it look more natural than it is. You can see that the wrist is completely turned around. I think I ended up going with a pretty angular spear. Yeah, there he is. I considered using a more Nordic leaf-shaped spear, but it just really never came together. Just cleaning up some stuff. Just working on the figure a little bit here. And doing another little adjustment. The arm was too long was the problem. Her forearm was about as long as her thigh, if not longer. And we're bringing the cape in. What are we doing now? Just cleaning up. Oh yeah, here we refine the cape, give it an actual more cape-like feel rather than a Nightmare Before Christmas feel. Big improvement. Oh, there's this one part of the armor I hate, and it's right where the armor under the like the armpit area, the breastplate stops and the chainmail begins. It's just such an awkward area shading wise. It's really hard to have contrast on there. And now we're doing some of the legs. We're adding these little cuffs, I guess, for the thigh-high boots. I don't know why. I always have problems doing women's hips. I make them like too wide, so that kind of the groin area is really wide. I mean, it looks fine here, but in my mind, it never looks right. Here I'm just adding details to the armor. These ribbons came out really well, really quickly, so I was super happy about that. Actually, that's one of my favorite parts of the piece. It's just the detailing on the armor. It looks really nice. And we're adding those little medallions. Adding detail to armor just, I don't know, it just makes it come to life so much more. It adds so much more character. Here I'm adding some little wrinkles and folds in the leather. And fixing the boots. All those little leather straps on the armor. There's a ton of them. Here I'm adding the chain. I know, it's kind of boring. I'm just really describing what I'm doing. There's really not that much insight here. This character I've done a bunch of times now, so it's pretty much just matching the details from the original. Though I kind of wish I had gone more out there. Her armor is cool, don't get me wrong, but I think it could have been cooler. I really do like the way the leather straps and the belt all tie together, though. I think it's just really like distinguishing her character from other characters. She's almost got like this skirt of just errant leather straps and belts. Also, I can definitely brag that I've gotten very quick at painting swords in scabbards. You'll see that in a second. Yeah, her medallion, I don't love it. It reminds me of an Olympic medal too much. Okay, there's definitely something living in my ceiling. If this is my last video, then alert the authorities, because I guess the thing that lives in my ceiling came down and ate me. I don't know what it is. I hear it every day. It's like this pitter-patter of feet or something, and it's creepy. I keep telling myself it's just water running through the pipes, but I don't know. I don't like it. Alright, anyway, so there's the sword. Love that sword. It's never been drawn. And by drawn, I mean pulled from its scabbard, not actually drawn. And it's kind of sad. Her halberd's not in this piece. I miss it. I really like the way I did the boots here. It reminds me of a specific artist whose name is escaping me right now. Kev Walker. There it is. Not bad. Pretty quick remembering. I really like to style. When I worked at Wizards, I was in charge of a lot of art assets. And in charge, I mean I referenced them a lot. I had to find pieces for digital games that were coming up, such as it's out now. Not Final Fantasy, Magic Tactics, and Duels of Planeswalkers 2012, which I am credited on. Oh yeah. But anyway, Kev Walker's stuff is really great. How to describe it? he's really great with his contrast. He has areas of very low contrast, and he actually usually uses a very limited palette. So anyway, her left boot is very Kev Walker-esque in that there aren't too many tones going on. Okay, I'm going to shut up now about that anyway, because right now I'm doing something very important. So what I'm making right now is a custom brush. This is a spear brush. And what I'm doing is I have a 2500 by 2500, 300 DPI canvas. I'm just making a black shape on a white background, saving it, setting it as a spear brush. Done. Making a second one with a little bit more contrast to it, a little more form. It actually doesn't come out that well, but we'll talk about that later. And here you can see me messing with brush settings to get it to work the way I want it to work. Pretty sneaky. So I had this original idea, if you've ever seen the movie Hero, of just like a wall of spears. Just endless number of spears being hurled past her. In the movie Hero, there's a scene where I believe it's the Imperial Army uses these crossbows, and China loves its manpower, so they've got like thousands and thousands and thousands of these crossbowmen, and they all fire at once, and it's just, waves of crossbow bolts. But in the end, I didn't really like the way it looked, so this gets scrapped in a little bit. I entertained the notion for a while. You'll see me cleaning it up and stuff, but it's not gonna last. Just to let you know. Here I'm scaling it, mostly because I'm lazy, but didn't end up working. I felt like she had to be completely in the frame. Putting in a dragon, the first of many. I've gotten very good at painting dragons in silhouette and doing it quickly. I know a lot of people make their dragons very serpentine, like they're swimming through the clouds, but mine are always a little bit more awkward. They're like kind of hung up on their pinions, like they're hanging in a closet or something. It's kind of funny. You'd have to have a lot of abdominal and rib strength to keep yourself horizontal, I imagine, while flying, unless you have a lot of drag on your tail and it's pulling you like that. But anyway, beside the point, yeah, I usually make mine like that. Kind of the hovering dragon who's, breathing fire at you. So this was the worst castle ever. I'm painting these towers in the background, so there's something interesting, but it looks pretty bad. I do fix it up a bit, so it's not terrible at the end, but I wish I could have just left it as her, because she was such a strong, just pose and everything. I feel like everything else is sort of just detracting. Anyway, she's also in the extreme foreground, so everything else is going to be in the distance behind her, which is a little bit awkward if you're leading an army. Here we go. Now I realize at this point that the crenellations are... Well, first, the curvature's off, but then the crenellations are too big. Oh, no, I haven't realized it yet. I'm importing that dragon, which was awesome. Come on, do it. Oh, I'm adding a background. I'm trying to add some landscape here, but the problem was it was just... It didn't look right. Pretty much, if that's where the ridgeline was, either the castle, well, actually, the castle would have to be in a ditch, pretty much, or in a ravine or something, and then that can either be a crescent really close up or a really nonsensical landscape. Ends up being a nonsensical landscape. Essentially, there probably shouldn't be a landscape, or it should be really flat and distant. Got some dragon breath. Yeah, here we go. Fixing crenellations. If you've seen my Rain of Fire video, which is, in my opinion, my worst piece as of late, you'll see a lot of crenellation work. Yeah, patterns are hard to paint. It's much easier to do organic stuff. But you just gotta suck it up, or you can use a 3D program. Here we go. We are now adding some random geographical features. I actually had the idea of doing this kind of field of stone pillars, but it seemed weird to be that close to the castle, so they get toned down a little bit. So now I had the idea of adding a little bit of story in the form of, once the volley is thrown, all these dragons just get really messed up and kind of pitched to the ground. So here's a dragon who is getting destroyed by spear throws. Just working out his wings. Adding some aerial perspective and lowering his opacity. I couldn't quite figure out his wings for this, so they're a little bit sloppy, a little bit opaque. Usually my wings are pretty translucent and catch the light, but not this time. And as a sort of last ditch effort or whatever, he's breathing out a gout of flame as he falls. Kind of like when people in movies get shot and they have a machine gun and they just empty their entire magazine as they fall down. Same idea. Liquefy tool, fixing up the dragon, gotta fix up his jaw, haven't done that yet. Now to put some spears in his body. I guess it takes several spears to take a dragon down. Makes sense. I ended up giving him some horns just to break up the other outline and differentiate him from the other dragons, which don't really have them. And here we go, painting in some spears being thrown from behind the walls conveniently, so I don't have to paint any guards. And this is where the custom brush really helped, because this was much faster than what I was doing. Here we go. Now, she is sort of in the foreground. There's not really much around her other than the rock she's standing on, so I ended up adding something in a second to help give more depth of field. There he is. Now, I'm not sure if this was the wisest thing to do for a couple of reasons. One, I'm not sure if this actually helped define her in space or confuse her in space, because this claw is sort of just arbitrarily there, and I can't really tell if it's in front of her, behind her, coming at her, what the deal is. So, yeah. I don't know if that was the best idea, to be honest. The other reason is, as you will notice, none of the other dragons have hands. They all have wings for their upper limbs. So, kind of awkward. Not really sure whose hand this is. It's obviously a dragon hand, but why does this dragon have hands and the other ones don't? I don't know. Maybe some do, and they're just not being shown. Adding some scale details. I much prefer doing these in the color phase than the black and white phase. One of the problems I have with coloring is that coloring is never that neat, and I always have to do a lot of edge cleanup, and that wastes time. So I don't know, like I was saying before, I think it might be smarter to just kind of splash color on and then just start rendering from there, rather than doing black and white, rendering, color, touch-ups, rendering. I feel like that adds an extra hour or two. And, of course, he's got the obligatory spear sticking out of him, so that dragon's done. And I added this dragon here, who I really liked. He's sort of just to give a sense that there's a lot of dragons hanging out. And a little aerial perspective. And I should have left this dragon where he was. I ended up moving him. But he's sort of like dive bombing into the action. I mean, he looks good there too, but I should have had another dragon where that original one was. And then I added another dragon up here who looks sort of more like a bat than a dragon. Uh-oh, it's coloring time. Now, my biggest mistake, in my opinion, here was I left the middle around the horizon too dark. I should have brightened it up, and I didn't. And, I mean, I probably could go back and do it, but I don't have the time. I've got too many pieces coming up. But in a perfect world, I'd go back and fix it. Make a more legible horizon line and pick out some of the details along the way, but I didn't have time, and I didn't think of it when I was doing it. I think I used an overlay for this color this time. I usually use a color layer, but I found when things are too rendered out, the color layers tend to add tones, which I don't really need to be added, and I don't like them. So anyway, I'm just coloring here, trying to be careful, not go over the edges, but it's gonna happen. Kind of sucks. And coloring this guy in. Yeah, he was a little bit messier. I ended up kind of just throwing him in. And here we're cleaning up the edges of this guy's fingers, as you can tell. coloring in some spear shafts. What are we doing now? I don't know. Okay, we're doing the fire now. So I made them really orangey red at first, but then I ended up shifting them back to yellow. The reason I did that was if the scene had been more blue, I think, they kind of like an arid desert, you can get away with a very red-orange for the fire, but the scene just wasn't quite there. It wasn't crisp enough. So those end up getting changed back to yellow. Alright, so we're just coloring in the captain now, who has no name, just the captain. And the armor is excessively blue at the moment. Alright, we're still coloring. And now we're trying to fix it. Now, like I was talking about before, metals reflect their environment, so the portions of the armor facing the ground have to be more yellowish red. The portions facing the sky need to stay blue. So that's why it looks the way it does. More tweaking. Yeah, let's fix those furs. Color the gloves. Time to do the hair. Her hair is very intense. It's gonna get toned down in a minute. Oh, there we go, fixing the fire. Alright, time for some skin. And I stopped doing the face features with color. I started doing them with multiply like I used to. I think it just looks better in the end when you start doing all the blood flow beneath the cheeks and the lips and the nose and the ears and around the eyes. When you do it on a multiply layer, it just looks better to me. So that's how I do it from now on. Castle. The castle is right now boring gray, but it's going to get warmed up to match the environment a little bit better. Here we're just sort of, I guess it's a very windy, sandstormy type of battle, since there's a lot of dust in the air. And this is a fixer layer, as I like to call them, where I go around and fix the edges of things. Here we go, adding multiply layer to add blood flow beneath the cheeks, nose, and ears. There should be, there's darkening of the mouth, and then behind and around the eyes, there's a kind of a purplish hue. And I add a little color to the arm as well. Forehead's more yellow. The chin and mouth area is more bluish. And we're adding a little bit of shadow here and there. This is where I think the armor starts really looking good. Yeah, right there. That's where the armor starts to look good. It's a lot of work. Just watching myself do it is, I can't believe how much time this took. Ugh. I guess the claw is behind her in space. It's like to her front, but behind her, sort of just over her shoulder. So, yeah, I guess she's the furthest forward piece, or character, item, etc. in the painting. Damn, I should have done more to make that more obvious. I probably should have extended her cape out or had some arrows or spears in front of that dragon's claw, but whatever. Alright, so I'm just doing some color dodges for highlight here. Really buffing the armor out. I actually have to tone it down in a second. So many highlights. And I think after the highlights I had a bounce light also, so yeah, there it is. Now the bounce was blue originally, but it becomes red. If I remember correctly. As it should, since the ground is red. Yep, there it is. And in a little bit, I think, doing rim lights here, and more bounce. I think I have to dull down her armor along the arm, which I'll probably do soon once these rim lights and bounce lights are finished. Oh, using the liquefy tool. I had to fix her armpit. It was sticking out too much. It looked like she had a balloon in her armpit. So I had to work the shadows and the highlights a little bit to add some depth there, as well as the actual curvature of the chainmail. And I think something similar had to be done on the other arm too, just because the curvature of the arm wasn't right. See, there we go. And here I am, dulling up the armor to match more of the breastplate look. Had to be done. Some touch-ups here. This is a fixer layer, as you can tell. Sampling some of the background to add highlights on the chainmail there. Adding the little braid to her hair. so that there's something for those gold clasps to sit on. Softening up the underside. Adding some more flair to the spear and metal. And a little bit to the hair as well, I guess. I think that's an overlay layer. Oh, okay, so this is kind of funny. You're gonna see her flex her legs. I couldn't decide whether the legs were too thin or not, so I ended up doing a very, I don't know, characterful response, I guess, which is that I often do this is if I can't decide how much I like the fix I just did, is I'll leave it in at a certain opacity. Sort of like a vote of confidence. If I think that something is 20% right looking, I'll leave it at 20% opacity. So here I'm adding some rim highlights to this claw. It really makes it look more real. And the spears get a little bit of love too. And the rock, I guess, as well. Here I'm fixing the curvature of the armor plates on her arm. I will be very excited when I don't have to do armor for a little while. Especially that one piece of armor, because I've done it so many times now. It's really difficult every time. Alright, so I'm just fixing up. This is actually one of my more favorite stages, which is when the main part of the work is done. I'm just sort of fixing up little things here and there. I kind of like doing that the most. I don't like doing the big tedious, or not tedious parts, I guess. The really big important parts I don't like doing. I like doing the little tedium. Alright, so I'm just fixing up the edges here on all the dragons. Adding arrow perspective as necessary. This wing needed some help. That must have hurt. Spear through the tail. Ooh, this is fun. So this is where the fire comes to life. It's when I start adding the color dodge layers. Yeah, fire is definitely one of my favorite things to paint. And here I add some wisps of dust. Oh, and here I use some debris brushes, kind of just ad hoc ones. I use my shrapnel brush in a little bit, but these ones were sort of just so it didn't look the same. There I'm using the shrapnel brush. And this debris is just sort of give an idea that things are flying around. Junk is happening. It's chaotic. Here I'm adding a radial blur. The reason being is that radial blurs add a sense of drama and focus to the piece, but I ended up toning it down a lot because it didn't quite look right. Oh, here I'm adding further highlights. I guess it needed it. Here I'm messing around with some renderings. many different renderings. And here I'm using color balance. Actually, I didn't use this one before. The exposure is really cool. You can like blow out the sun, make it look really dramatic, like a photograph. I didn't go that far this time, just because it was my first time using it. But it's definitely a cool adjustment layer. Here I went in and I used Liquify one last time to just fix some things, make her look a little more feminine and her head less cocked to the side. So you can see, shouting. And I had to distort it a little bit to counteract the fact that her head had just become dramatically smaller. And that's it. So I'm going to let you enjoy this. So cocky. I'm going to let you enjoy looking at this piece for a little bit longer. I hope you enjoyed the video. Sorry about the delay, and I know this was a long video. Like I said, this took about 8 hours to paint. Yeah, come back soon. I'll have more videos, more pieces for you to look at, and hopefully you'll learn something. Thanks again.